We are connected more than ever. Video calls and smartphones, nobody is out of reach for too long with a good internet connection. And why not apply those same principles to local government? The town of Manchester worked with Bang the Table's engagement platform to start Your Voice Matters Manchester, that allows the community an accessible, flexible online space to connect, inquire, and engage directly with town leaders on important issues and projects. Today we are talking with Town Manager Steve Stephanou about this program and more. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Glad to have you here. So, first off, for the people listening at home who might not be familiar with all the forms of town government in Connecticut, can you tell a little bit about what you do and what the difference is between a town manager and, let's say, a mayor or first selectman?
Sure. Nobody ever asked this, so I'm glad that you do. Most people have no idea what a town manager or a city manager is or does. So, I the most two common forms of government are either a strong mayor, um, or a council manager form of government, which is what we
Hmm.
have here in Manchester. So, under a strong mayor, a mayor is directly elected by the community, and in that capacity, also serves as the chief executive officer
Hmm.
of the municipality. So you see that in a lot of our bigger cities, Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. Alternatively, there's also the council manager form of government, and under that system, you have the elected body, um, who serves as the policy making
Hmm.
body for the community. They Their most important functions are really three of them. First is to adopt and implement a budget.
Hmm.
Number two is to set overall policy for the community. And three is to hire a city or town manager who is the chief executive officer of the administration
Okay.
of the town city government, which is what I do. So I serve at the pleasure of our what we call the board of directors here in
Hmm.
Manchester, which is our town council. We do have, uh, based on the last charter revision, a directly elected mayor, who's Jay Moran.
Okay.
But he serves just as part of the nine board of directors. And again, they hire me to manage the day-to-day operations
Hmm.
of the town. So I supervise and evaluate all of our frontline departments, and then obviously give them input and advice on matters of policy. But at the end of the day, it is up to the board of directors, to discuss and pass policies and pass a
Hmm.
budget.
That's cool. So, like, kind of like in the federal government where you have the legislative and the executive branch, you've got council coming up with a policy and you executing that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting though because it's a little different. I think some people like to think of it as the at the state level you have the governor's office and the executive branch and the General Assembly, but you do have, and I always point this out, that the legislative body also does have oversight over the administration, and obviously by
Hmm.
um, you know, my relationship with them and them evaluating the manager, they do have a direct role. So they are the legislative body, but they also do have oversight, obviously, on
Hmm.
on administration and operational matters.
Cool. All right. Well, that explains it for some of the people at home. Um, so we asked you on today to talk about Your Voice Matters. And before we jump into some of the details, can you talk a little bit about just a broad overview of what does it do, who benefits?
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So one of the things that I've been focused on, and I think a lot of cities and towns are focused on right now, is improving engagement with the community. And I think especially in kind of this brave new world um, of social media, various platforms that are available, trying to figure out ways to, both, you know, get more direct input and feedback from residents, but also sort of the two-way engagement of getting messaging out from the town itself on keeping people informed on actual facts about what's going on in town,
Hmm.
updates on projects. And I think that's increasingly hard now in the world that we live in that's so digitalized. Social media is great for a
Hmm.
lot, but a lot of times with message boards, there can be misinformation that gets out there. Um, People might hear one thing that isn't necessarily accurate, and it's really important, obviously, for cities and towns to make sure that accurate information is getting out to residents, and then crucially, that we're hearing from people who may not either be interested or comfortable with the more traditional ways of engaging with your
Yeah.
local government, which is a bi-monthly meeting where you have to come to town hall at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday once or twice a month. And I think that's where um, you know the sort of digital ecosystem does provide an opportunity for local
Hmm.
governments to do a better job of engaging with our residents. So what we've done, we've established a Office of Communications and Civic Engagement,
Hmm.
which has two full-time staff members right now. And really their job is mainly twofold. And like I said, fulfilling those bilateral modes of communication, both
Hmm.
by receiving input from the community and also getting town's messaging out there.
Yeah.
Uh, so what they do is, they'll manage our social media. Um, they'll manage our mailing list. We have a Manchester Matters mailer email that goes on a regular basis. And then one of the things I think we're most proud about is Your Voice Matters, which is what you brought me on here to talk about today, which
Yeah.
is a online engagement platform that is really project based.
Okay.
And for major projects that are going on in town, we'll set up a a piece of Your Voice Matters to allow members of the community to click on and see what's going on with that particular project. So whether it's building our new library, whether it's our downtown streetscapes project, whether it's our parks and facilities master plan, it allows members of the public again to go in, get a little more context, and then
Hmm.
provide direct feedback on what they think about the project, any questions that they might have, um, and any input. And
Hmm.
it's a way to directly engage with us, outside of sort of, like I said, your traditional coming to a meeting,
Yeah.
giving a 2 minute statement, and then not being able to hear from us directly.
Yeah. So, what inspired Your Voice Matters? Did you go in search of a tool to do this for the town, or did the platform come to you and you thought, "Oh, this is a kind of a perfect fit"?
No, it was more the former, that we were looking something sort of specifically um, to to fill that gap that I was talking about, and that
Hmm.
really could be more project focused, and that also required, there is a little bit of I guess, responsibility on the citizen to kind of,
Hmm.
I mean, we'll promote this, but also to seek out and get some context on something before just making a comment, like on a Facebook messaging system. It's
Hmm.
easy to, see something that the town puts out there and just, quickly spout out a comment on a Facebook post. Whereas
Hmm.
this, you really have to take time. You got to sign up.
Okay.
Um, uh, you are supposed to ensure that you're an actual Manchester resident.
Hmm.
You can be another stakeholder if you're a business owner or a frequent visitor. But again, it puts a little more skin in the game from the perspective of the person who's interacting with us. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I think that gives a level of assurance that from the town side that we're engaging with someone who you know is a member of the community who has a good faith interest in what we're doing,
Hmm.
and whose feedback we are going to, really consider and hear, and potentially, ultimately alter some of the projects that we're working on based
Yeah.
on the input that they're giving us.
Um, so as we noted at the top of the show, it's easier than ever to stay in contact with friends and family through social media and stuff. But why is it important for residents to stay in contact with their town, and why is it important for a town to stay in contact with its residents?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I'd argue that's why, local government's so important, and it kind of gets to bigger first principles of democracy. But,
Hmm.
for a local government to work well, you really need an active and engaged citizenship.
Hmm.
Um, because we're at the end of the day, and getting back to the form of government, the town administration is here to carry out the will of the community,
Hmm.
and we can't do that if we're not hearing directly from the people that we serve. So yes, there's a place for staff expertise, for
Hmm.
technical capability. You need planners, you need engineers, you need subject matter experts, whether it's public safety or economic development. But at the end of the day, for us to be successful, we need to make sure that we know what our residents want.
Hmm.
And that's the essence of local government, is making sure that we're uh, carrying out the will of the people that we serve
Hmm.
each and every day. And I also think, I guess a little more specifically on major projects. So I'll take our library, for example. We're
Hmm.
we're in the process of designing and building a 21st century library here in Manchester, which is incredibly exciting. Uh, our current main branch, while beloved, goes back to the 1930s, and
Wow.
we've outgrown. And the voters overwhelmingly 2 years ago approved the resources to fund and build the new library.
Hmm.
But this is going to be a building that's going to be, in the heart of downtown Manchester, serving, families and visitors and residents for hopefully, centuries to come. So it's really important that we get the input from the
Yeah.
Manchester community of what do they want to see with their brand new library. Thinking out not just for the next few years, but for the next several decades.
Yeah.
So what this tool allows us to do is sort of roll out, um, in different increments. This is where we're at right now. This is where we're at with the external design, the internal design. We have a committee that's working on this. This allows the committee to get input from the public about
Hmm.
what they like with the plans. Maybe, if there's anything that is polarizing, to get direct input from people that are going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Um, so it's crucial.
Yeah. So large part of it is clarity, showing people what's going on, people being able to look in and follow along with projects.
Exactly. Yep.
That's really cool stuff. One of the facets that was interesting about this platform is that it's extremely accessible. It's ADA compliant, it's open 24/7, it's multilingual. Do you think you're hearing from residents that you otherwise would not have heard from if you maintained, in-person only comment forums?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think just back to I mean, the point of the fact that, it's not easy. And I can say this as someone who's got two young kids, three and one, that, if I were not in this line of work, it would be difficult for me to make it out to a meeting on a Tuesday
Hmm.
to give my input of, whatever was happening with my local government. And we certainly are able to increase engagement with folks that can't come to a meeting necessarily, or that we can't meet out, um, or hear from directly during normal business hours. So, we think based on just what we collect in terms of demographics, and just the
Hmm.
fact that, the amount of engagements that we've seen on the platform over the course of what's coming up to 4 years, certainly shows us that, yeah, we're hearing from people that we otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah.
Now that being said, we're still, you know it's a work in progress. And I think
Hmm.
especially, in Manchester, we have a increasingly diverse community,
Hmm.
which is what we think is one of our biggest strengths as a community. We're uh, likely, I think, later this decade to become a majority minority. We have a
Hmm.
large Spanish speaking population. We have a large Southeast Asia population. Bengali is actually, other than English and Spanish, our biggest spoken language.
Wow.
And we really want to make sure that we're reaching those
Hmm.
populations. We continue to think of ways in which we are becoming more successful and getting
Hmm.
people, especially from historically marginalized groups, I think, to feel more comfortable with platforms like this to give feedback to the town.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's an ongoing effort, and frankly, one that we do want to make sure that we're doing a better job of reaching
Hmm.
historically marginalized groups, and this is one way in which we can do that.
Yeah, it's important stuff to do. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. Now, you've used this platform in a lot of ways already, but one of your recent projects, Repurposed Schools, gained over 2,000 participants alone. What was that like to see kind of that success? Were you proud of it? Were you overwhelmed?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was rewarding, and especially uh thinking about, to one of your initial questions about sort of the purpose of this.
Hmm.
um that's exactly what we've wanted to see. That's been uh a big project that we've been continuing to work on. It's just part of a consolidation and modernization of our elementary schools has left us with a few buildings that are either currently vacant or going to be
Hmm.
vacant at the end of this modernization of some of the elementary schools. And it was an opportunity for us to hear directly from folks about what they want to see with of of these buildings,
Hmm.
what they're looking for, um, you know, sort of broad hopes and desires in terms of programming and services. And like you said, 2,000 people is a really good sample size. And on that particular initiative, we did really good at getting outreach to historically marginalized groups. One of Actually, two of the buildings are in two of our lower income neighborhoods here in
Hmm.
town, high on SVI, social vulnerability index
Hmm.
uh, uh, scales. So all the more important, I think, because unfortunately, I think there is a correlation between household income, other sort of social determinants of health,
Hmm.
sort of scores, and engagement. And that gets back to my earlier point about, we want to make sure that uh, we're hearing from the entire community. And I think
Hmm.
the repurposed schools is one where we actually did do a good job of making sure we were hearing from the people that were being most impacted, that live closest to the buildings, um, and that do represent communities that historically haven't been able to communicate or engage with the town.
Yeah. And what are the responses that you get through this platform like? Is it just, I love it, thumbs up, I don't like this, or are you getting, novels?
Good question. Overall, I think it's positive. I think people appreciate the opportunity and the flexibility. Um, it's also, I think, to be fair, somewhat self-selecting, that you need someone who is somewhat computer savvy, that
Hmm.
has an internet connection and can sign up. So it gets to my point where, I mean, this, and I guess I should have said this earlier, this is just one tool in the toolbox of
Hmm.
this overall engagement effort. Um, I think we're likely to get a younger demographic, um, obviously that's adept with technology.
Hmm.
It is ADA compliant, which is great, but um, it is somewhat of a self-selecting group that's going to be able to, navigate the online platform. We try and make it as intuitive and easy to use as possible.
Hmm.
But that being said, there's some folks that I think might have trouble with it, and for that, we try and make sure that we, um, in addition to doing the Your Voice Matters, that we're doing in-person surveys. So, like
Hmm.
on the Repurposed Schools project, we would set up a little pop-up tent at a farmer's market that served the same neighborhood as one of the repurposed schools,
Hmm.
and had a booth where people could just fill out forms there in person in case they didn't have the ability to get online.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it'll range from, depending on what sort of survey we put out. Sometimes if you do, a multiple choice survey along with narrative, you'll get, people that just do multiple choice,
Hmm.
and, filling out different scales. And then some people will, write a proverbial novel, which is
Yeah.
fine, which is good. I mean, to me, the more feedback, the better.
Hmm. Definitely. Um, how do you identify what projects to share?
That's a good question. I mean, it's an art more than a science, admittedly.
Hmm.
We try and focus on ones that are, you know, they're going to have a big impact, um, not only in terms of resources,
Hmm.
and that are, potentially going to be a large chunk of taxpayer money, because it's
Hmm.
important, obviously, that we're spending that in uh, in a way that the community wants to see it. But getting back to the library, a project that's going to um, endure, and have importance and impact on the community, uh, for a certain period of time. So
Hmm.
you don't want to overuse the tool where it's like, uh, what do you think of this stop sign location?
Yeah.
That obviously isn't going to be practical. So I think it's a balance between, our plan of conservation development, which every city and town in Connecticut has to do
Hmm.
once every 10 years. That was that good example of one that it's not a physical, tangible project,
Hmm.
but it's one that is incredibly important for shaping the way Manchester's going to look,
Yeah.
uh, in terms of planning and development. Uh, the Parks and Facilities Master Plan, again, those are, major infrastructure, recreational facilities that, we created a master plan on, that's going to have impact for years to come. Same thing with the library, same thing with our downtown streetscape design. So I think we're really looking for calling out projects that are very impactful for a wide range of the community, for, um, you know, not only now but well into the future.
Very cool. So you mentioned this before, but you have a new civic engagement specialist. Uh,
Yep.
what exactly does that role entail, and how does it fit in with Your Voice Matters?
Sure. So, the civic engagement specialist, is currently Michelle Doyle, who works with Brianna Smith, who's our communications and civic engagement director.
Hmm.
And they make up that office. Uh, the civic engagement specialist is, part of her role is um, to monitor Your Voice Matters, to help
Hmm.
set up the project pages, and then facilitate and assist with uh, feedback that we get, the interactions between relevant departments uh, and the community, assist in our overall communication strategy, framework, and implementation. So, the multi-pronged approach of, um, we do a quarterly physical Manchester flyer that goes out to all of our residents.
Hmm.
We have various social media, Instagram, Facebook, uh, and then our mailing list, our email lists, and this just managing that. That's a big component of the role.
Hmm.
And then what we've also done, kind of expanding on Your Voice Matters, is that specialist, Michelle, civic engagement specialist, has spearheaded what we're calling community conversations,
Hmm.
which is uh, a opportunity for a sort of group of community members that we've reached out to. That again, we've tried to be intentional in finding um, members of the community that represent folks that historically we haven't done a great job of engaging with,
Hmm.
or that we just haven't seen show up through the traditional methods of local government engagement. And she's been doing focus groups with them, just getting, candid insight and feedback on, what's going well with the town, and their perspective on, what we're doing with engaging the community and what's not going well and how
Yeah.
can we improve, and how can we try and make sure that two-way line of communication is improving and is best that it can be. So those are sort of the major things that they're working on right now.
Very interesting. With something like this, we've talked about how the public interacts with it and can use it to access stuff, but how was it with town employees? Did you have to get buy-in from a lot of people? Was there resistance or
Good question. And fortunately here, I think we have a staff that was very open and willing to be a part of this.
Mhm.
And what's nice is that again, you can for each project you can set up town contacts. So
Okay.
for the library project, you have obviously library staff, um, also some construction management staff along with my office.
Hmm.
But for you know uh, something like the streetscape, you have engineers that are on
Hmm.
that, and I think they appreciate the fact that they're given an opportunity to give just objective input and answers to questions in a controlled but open environment, and
Yeah.
I think the ability for them to also see directly from stakeholders who've gone through the process of being willing to sign up. Again, it's not just your random Facebook or Reddit
Yeah.
commenter. It's someone that really has shown that they have a good faith interest in whatever project they're working on. And from a I think from a you know public servant perspective, that's fulfilling. I mean, that should be
Yeah.
the reason that you're doing this work in the first place, is to be able to you know serve the community, and then also hear feedback directly and hopefully incorporate that in the work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. The transparency goes both ways.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one of the reasons that we asked you on to the Municipal Voice to talk about this project was that it won the 2023 Municipal Excellence Awards, specifically in the category of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What compelled you to submit this platform to the competition?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it gets back to a lot of the previous answers that I've given, but a priority certainly for me and on behalf of the board of directors who I serve, and the mayor, has been figuring out a way, in a already diversified but increasingly diversified town with uh, multiple languages spoken, various cultures, ensuring that we're as a local government, to get back to that sort of fundamental question that you asked of why is this
Mhm.
important, is because local government can't be successful unless we're um, actually serving the interests and needs of the community who lives
Mhm.
here. And we think that this has been, again, a work in progress, only one tool in the toolbox, but a way in which we have successfully um, engaged people in non-traditional ways, and it's helped informed the projects that we're working on right now. And we're excited. There's a lot of the things over the next 2 years that we've been in a planning phase, but now
Hmm.
we're in an implementation phase where whether it's a brand new park that's a result of the Parks and Facilities Master Plan that was
Hmm.
part of Your Voice Matters. That's going to include a artificial turf field with lighting for our soccer groups. There's going to be a skate park that's been long advocated for by a lot of our youth community, and a pump track. That's all going to be located in one park where construction is going to start this year.
Hmm.
We're going to have the new library that'll be, starting this year or next year and hopefully opening in the next 2 or 3 years. Uh, and we feel confident in these projects and really excited about them because we have taken the time to hear from members of the community that are going to be, utilizing these services and programs. Um, and now we're actually seeing them come to fruition.
That's great. We like to end up each episode talking about the future, being optimistic. So my question to you is, are you optimistic about the future of civic engagement in town? Are you feeling good about it?
Yeah, I am. I mean, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I think I'm very optimistic with a focus tool like this, and where I would
Hmm.
encourage, any other city or town or, organization that seeks to do a better job of, uh, engaging with whatever stakeholder group to look at things like this that are a little more focused and transparent in what the goal is
Hmm.
versus I guess what I'm less optimistic about is what you see on um just your random social media posts or a Facebook thread or a Twitter thread,
Hmm.
where I think that can a lot of times, given the dynamics of whatever the platform is, kind of bring out the worst in people.
Hmm.
You can get arguing back and forth. What I am hopeful for and optimistic is that I think as we adapt to the disruption that we've seen, and I think the way local government functions,
Hmm.
there's an opportunity through platforms like this um, to get to a place where we are again getting to the fundamental purpose of local government, which is to provide and serve the residents and folks, businesses, visitors who frequent our cities and towns. And yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic, just given the success that we've had with this specific platform. And I'm also, what I find interesting and also, you know, giving me optimism is that there's a lot of uh, potential opportunities in technology that
Hmm.
probably don't exist, or just starting out now, um, that things that we probably wouldn't even think of, that 5 years from now you'll have
Yeah.
someone on the Municipal Voice will be talking about some new tool that will even enhance and come up with a better iteration for online civic engagement, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be online. So uh yes, incredibly optimistic.
Great. Well, Steve, thanks for talking with us today. Sounds like Manchester's in good hands.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt, for the invite, and thanks for CCM for all its support. And for I think it's just important, the excellence awards and just recognizing the great work that's going on across the state in many different aspects is a value in itself, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to highlight this. And also just want to put out there, anyone that's interested that is listening, feel free to reach out to me directly, or to Brianna Smith, our communications director, who unfortunately couldn't be with me for
Hmm.
this. Otherwise, she would have been, to learn more about the platform, and happy to share any um, best practices. That's the nice thing about local government,
Yeah.
is we can steal best practices from everybody, and folks are happy to do it. So
Yeah, it's one of the great parts of CCM is the sharing of the best practices between our members.
absolutely.
All right, Steve. Well, thanks for talking with us today.
Thanks, Matt.
We'd like to thank our guest, Steve Stephanou. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for a CCM chat series on our YouTube page.